How's it going, everybody? It's Leo again, making another video for you. Today I'm going to be talking about a question I've been asked in the past a couple times for some people that have been wanting to get either an Acura RSX or a Honda Civic, and they kind of want to go and just before they go out and buy or try to buy one of these cars, they want to know more about them. And I've been asked before, hey, what are some key differences? What are the similarities between these two cars, or which one should I get and whatnot? So today, I'm not going to be telling you which car you should buy. I'm just going to be stating some facts, and maybe those facts, and a bit of my opinion as well. But with those facts, I hope that you can decide which of these two cars you would rather have. So first things first, I want to get this out there. I've been an Acura RSX owner for close to 8 years now. So if you're new to the channel, I do in fact own an Acura RSX Type S. My RSX is actually this one in the left, in the middle, the white RSX. That's my personal car. That's a picture from a while back. My car does not look like that anymore. However, yeah, so I want to get that out there. However, I'm gonna try to be as unbiased as possible. I'm just gonna try and just see just go over some of these things that these cars have in common, some differences, and what you should consider when looking at them. So yeah, so I want to get that out there. I'm a seasoned Acura RSX Type S owner. However, I do know my fair share bit of Honda Civics, especially because back in college, in my freshman year, my roommate and high school friend used to have a 2006 Honda Civic Si, and we used to swap cars week in and week out. We just would go like, hey, do you know what? Do I drive the RSX? I drive the Civic, and vice versa. So that was fun, and I got to drive that car. I got to do pulls on it too, so I kind of know how that car behaves. So yeah, so this video I'm gonna be going over just what you should know that's are the key differences, the key similarities, and just what you could expect from these cars by being an owner. So the Acura RSX, to begin with, was manufactured from 2002 all the way to 2006. So it was a very short-lived model for Acura. It had one facelift in its short lifespan. So that was back in 2005. Acura did a facelift for the Acura RSX, and you can see that difference in the top picture and the bottom picture. Top picture is a 2004 Type S. The bottom picture is my car, 2005 RSX. So you can see the teardrop kind of design on the top one, and like the more clean, flush lines on the bottom. You may have your personal preference. In my case, I prefer 05 to 06 RSXs, like aesthetic wise and for other reasons. But yeah, that's the key differences between them cosmetically. A couple more things like the wheels and tires they had, and some body aspects, like some body kits that they came with or without them. So there were only three trims basically two trims. So it's a base model automatic one, and then a base model 5-speed one, and then you had the Type S 6-speed one, which is the car that most of us that like the car scene, all that, we tend to levitate towards Type S's. And Acura said it produced approximately 130,000 of Acura RSXs in its lifespan, so that includes base models and Type S's. Now for the Acura RSX engine configurations, this is a big one. So if you're into the car scene, you want to know what these cars came with from the factory. So for the base model, automatic or 5-speed, it was the same engine for the 02 to 04 and for the 05 to 06. So it's the same engine, same spec, nothing changes in it. It's 160 horsepower at 6,500 RPM, 142 pound-feet of torque at 6,000 RPM. IV Tech, you got those specs right there. You could pause the video if you want to look at them. Keep in mind though that later on in 2005, the SAE reconfigured the way it would measure horsepower output. So the power output went down from 160 to 155 in 2005. Keep that in mind. Then for the 02 to 04 Type S and the 05 to 06 Type S, there were engine changes. So the 02 to 04 had the Type S, had the K20A2, and the 05 to 06 had the K20Z1. Key differences here The A2 model, so the previous Type S, had close to 200 horsepower from the factory at 7,400 RPM and 142 pound-feet of torque at 6,000 RPM. The K20Z1 had approximately 210, which was later revised in 2006 to 201 horsepower at 7,800 RPM. Torque, just one more pound-feet of torque at a higher RPM, as you can see here. I don't know if you can see the rest because of the camera angle, so my apologies. The IV Tech engagement stayed the same, so even though you can't see it, it was 5,800 RPM. The final drive did change, so there was a much more aggressive final drive for the 05 to 06 Type S, as you can see here. So that means that this final drive had better acceleration, less top speed. The red line for the 05 to 06 was also slightly increased by 200 RPM, and the compression remained the same. So all in all, like in paper, you would say that the cars are very similar. But yeah, so basically on paper, they're very similar cars. However, in the later years of the Type S, a lot of improvements were made. Bit more horsepower. The cams are a bit more aggressive. The final drive was more aggressive. So all in all, it gave you a little bit more performance out of that K20 engine. Now for the Honda Civic 8th Gen, included two pictures here. In the top picture, you can see an '07 Civic Si sedan. That was pre-facelift, so this car also had a facelift during its lifetime. The bottom one is a 2010 Civic Si sedan post-facelift. So this 8th generation Civic was manufactured from '06 all the way to 2011. As I said, it had one facelift that happened in 2009. The trims, there were a lot of trims for the Civic. As you know, the Civics are one of the most sold cars in the world. So there were two-door coupes and four-door sedans. That included DX, LX, EX, EXL, and SI trims. The DX, LX, EX, EXL were 5-speed manual or 5-speed automatic, and had the R18 A1 engine in it. And then they had the SI model, which had the K20Z3 engine in it. And that was obviously a 6-speed manual, no automatic transmission for the SI. And then in 2011, Honda said it produced over 1.3 million units of the Civic in general, just like basically Civic, including SI and all the other trims since 2006. So that's a pretty amazing number. So that can also tell you that the Civics are much more available than RSXs as well. Then for the Honda Civic engine configurations, it's pretty simple stuff. So for the base models, you had the R18 A1 engine. As I said previously, it was a 5-speed auto or 5-speed manual. You had 139 horsepower, 128 pound-feet of torque. You got those specs right there. You can pause the video if you want to look over them. And then for the SI, a K20Z3, 6-speed, 197 horsepower at 7,800 RPM, 139 pound-feet of torque at 7,200 RPM. There you can see the IV Tech engagement, which is the same as Type S, and also the final drive is the same as the 05 to 06 Type S. Red line is a bit lower, compression is the same. Moving on to the direct comparison between the Acura RSX and the Honda Civic Si. So I used the 2006 model year for the Acura RSX and the 2006 model year for the Honda Civic Si. The reason is because I think it's the last year that RSX was produced, and it was the best model, with the most improvements overall. And then the Honda Civic Si, well, that's the first year it all got started. It's the same model year. I think it's the best comparison possible. So they both had a 6-speed manual, which I forgot to include for the Acura RSX here, so my bad. So they were both 6-speed. The Acura RSX had 210 horsepower. That was later revised to 201 in 2006, as I previously said. And 143 pound-feet of torque at 6,200 RPM. And when you look directly at the Honda Civic, it had 197 horsepower at 7,800 RPM and 139 pound-feet of torque at 7,200 RPM. So you can tell really easily that the Acura RSX had a little advantage in both horsepower and in torque. However, I do like looking at the fact that the Acura RSX had its torque at 1,000 RPM sooner than the Honda Civic Si, which is, at least in my opinion, a pretty big margin. Like 1,000 RPM is a lot, even though these cars do have a high RPM range. 1,000 RPM can make a difference. Everything else is exactly the same, but the LSD. So the Honda Civic Si had a helical LSD. The Acura RSX had an open diff. And I think this was one of Honda's biggest disasters with the Acura RSX, or biggest mistakes at least. They should have included an LSD on the Acura RSX Type S as well, but they didn't. This makes a drastic improvement when you're getting off the line with the Honda Civic Si. So that car has an upper edge there. But in everything else, they have the same final drive, the same IV Tech engagement. They have the same compression. The red line is slightly higher in the RSX, but not. I don't think it's enough to say it's drastically higher. It's a little bit higher, so you can milk it a little bit more. But this is just basically on paper comparison for their engine configurations. So there you go. As for interiors, these cars fairly simple. They're pretty old cars, so you don't expect too much out of them. You can watch a lot of YouTube videos of people reviewing them in person. I've done reviews on my car. I haven't done a Civic Si review, so I'm just including like some basic info, and that is that the Civic Si had cloth seats. Pretty comfortable seats. I've sat on those seats. They're pretty comfortable. They say SI on the back. Um, Other thing that's like you can notice easily is they have a two-tone, two-step, whatever you want to call it, instrument panel. You got the speed up top and then the RPMs down low. I think that's pretty cool. Nothing too crazy in the interior of the SI. The picture here that car has like some sat nav is not a good example. That car does not have any like touchscreen, head unit or anything. It has a simple like a simple radio there. So that's that. And then for the Acura RSX, the instrument panel is much simpler. It's very analog. You don't have anything digital like on the Civic Si. And you got two different tones. It was leather for the interior. You got a black interior and then a tan interior. Depending on the color you bought, you got either one of these two options. And yeah, this car had a Bose sound system, had a Bose subwoofer, um, and I had like a 6 CD changer in the head unit and whatnot. So they were fairly simple cars in the interior. If you want to grab like a better in-depth tour of those, you can watch any of my videos or any other YouTube video that showcases or reviews a Honda Civic Si. So that's basically it for the interior wise. So similarities between these two cars, they share the K20 platform. Obviously, they're not the same engine, but they share like a rather rough idea of the same engine. Working on them is roughly the same thing. On the Honda Civic Si, the engine is a little bit in deeper into the car. I don't know how to explain it, but the basically the hood on the Honda Civic it's a little bit shorter, so it's a little bit tougher to work on. At least for me, it has been, but it's not anything major. They have kind of similar power bands as I earlier discussed. Their curb weight power to weight ratio. The Honda Civic weighs, I think it's roughly 2,900 pounds. You can add like 70 pounds if you opt for a sedan one, and then the Acura RSX Type S weighs like 2,800, like 2,850 pounds, something along those lines. So they have a pretty similar power to weight ratio. The gearing on them is pretty similar. As I previously discussed, if you're talking about a 05 to 06 or Acura RSX Type S versus a 2006 Honda Civic Si, the final drive is the same. The only thing that changes in their gearing is a sixth gear. On the Acura RSX, it's a more aggressive gear, so you're higher in the RPM range in sixth gear than in the Honda Civic Si. But it's nothing major. I think it's like zero point 0.7 something to in the Acura RSX to zero point 0.6 something in the Honda Civic Si. Something I can say about both cars is they do handle very well for everyday driving. So obviously these are kind of commuter cars, like sporty commuter cars per se. And I've driven both. Obviously, I have more experience in the Acura RSX platform, but they both feel pretty similar in everyday driving. However, once you get into spirited driving, if you're launching off the line, you can tell that the Civic Si has an LSD in it. The Acura RSX does not. However, going around corners in both cars, I felt that the Acura RSX, at least in my opinion, kind of handles a little bit more, handles a little bit better than the Honda Civic Si. But the power delivery is very smooth in both cars. Both transmissions are really good, and they're very similar feeling transmissions. The notchiness that Honda is known for is present in both vehicles. And also, something that's fairly similar in these cars is that they have great aftermarket support, and that's true for both models. The aftermarket world industry has a great presence for both of these cars. You can get anything you want for you can let your imagination run wild for both these cars. So something that they're very similar in is also that aftermarket support. Something I forgot to mention also is that the rear seat space on both these cars. Something I forgot to mention is the rear seat space on both these cars is fairly similar. They're both coupes. However, if you opt for a sedan in the Civic Si, obviously you're going to get a much better back seat. So it's kind of a similarity and a difference at the same time. So if you're comparing coupe to coupe, they both have fairly similar back seats. They're very cramped for an adult. I mean, it's mainly made for kids. However, if you opt for a Civic Si sedan, then you have obviously more space. Some differences. I could be here all day naming some differences both cars have. However, I do want to mention the RSX is a hatchback. The Civic is a coupe or sedan. The RSX being a hatchback, I can tell you from first-hand experience, is a bit more practical car. Yes, the Civic Si has a little pass-through and all that, and I don't remember right now if both seats go down, but nonetheless, the design of having a hatchback gives you much better practicality. I have stuffed a lot of stuff into my Acura RSX, so that's one of the key differences of both cars. I previously said the Civic has an LSD, the Acura RSX does not. That's a fairly big deal depending on what's important to you. The sound system in the RSX is better, however. The RSX has, as I previously mentioned, a Bose sound system, which is pretty good for the time, and still to this day, I think it's a fairly good OEM sound system versus the Honda Civic one. The Type S, supposedly, according to my research and what I have read online, is that the Type S is slightly faster from factory than a Civic Si. But obviously you can have the driver mod, so that's something that can drastically change. The looks are obviously different. You might you might prefer a look over the other. I won't talk about my personal preference because I think you guys might know what my preference is. But obviously the cars are fairly different in looks. And the gas mileage is also fairly different. So you would expect that since the Honda Civic Si has like a higher gearing for the sixth gear, so it's lower in the RPM range at higher speed, it would have a better gas mileage. But according to, and I want to show you this, according to fueleconomy.gov, the Honda Civic Si model, so this is right here, the 6-speed one, has a combined miles per gallon of 23, and the Acura RSX has a combined miles per gallon of 25. So it's slightly higher on the Acura RSX, surprisingly. I wasn't expecting this at all, but that's maybe a key difference you might want to consider. But if you're planning on modifying your car, that just means nothing to you. So take that with a grain of salt. Any other like differences? Both cars should run on premium gas. You could tell here right here premium gasoline, so they're both premium gas. So once again, I've driven both cars, and I can say they handle pretty much not the same, but fairly similar. From the whole, the Honda Civic has an advantage that's non-debatable. But yeah, they're fairly similar cars. People tend to ask me what I prefer, or what I would get, or the differences between them. Honestly, guys, go for whatever you like more. I don't think the performance aspect of it is enough for me to tell you, oh, the Acura RSX Type S is a better car, no questions asked. Yes, it's supposedly a little bit faster. Yes, it might have a couple things that the Civic might not have in the sense of like a leather interior. They both have a sunroof. The RSX has Bose sound system. The RSX has slightly more horsepower, slightly more torque, a slightly higher RPM red line. So these are things that you could consider or factor in. But at least if you're asking me, from an 8-year experience Acura RSX Type S owner, I would say grab anything you can find for the better price. I haven't spoken on this video on pricing, and that's on purpose. Mainly because I don't know how the pricing looks in your area. In Puerto Rico, cars are drastically more expensive than in the United States, so that sucks for us. So I don't want to talk about pricing. I don't have any idea how the pricing on these cars is in the US. But I could just say just go with the with whatever you feel like go matches more your personality or whatever you like aesthetically more. I don't think I there's enough data for me to say um, that for a fact you should choose one over the other. I think it's just personal preference. Both cars are great performance. Both cars look great. Um, both cars have a great aftermarket support. So if you're into modifying your car like me, you're gonna find a lot of options out there. So don't worry about that aspect of it. But yeah, so the only true advantage down the line I'd say the Civic Si has is just the LSD, because the LSD for the Acura RSX could get expensive. With the Honda Civic, you don't have to buy that. So if you're really keen on performance, you can go just the Civic Si route and then just start modifying performance, and you'll get an amazing car right off the gate. You can also do that with the Acura RSX. However, you must keep in mind that you have an open diff. The power delivery from a standstill is not the same. You're going to do a lot of one wheel peelers. And that's pretty funny to look at. I've been on the receiving end of memeing from my friends because of one wheel peels. However, once you start getting to roll racing and all that, I think the RSX really shines. Also the Civic. I'm just talking about like LSD wise and whatnot. So yeah, guys. I once again I would just say grab the car you think goes along more with what you like want aesthetically, and don't really give that much of a importance to performance other than the fact that the Civic has an LSD. But yeah, guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. Something a little different from what I normally do. I kind of did a whole presentation for you, something I have never done before. But yeah, once again, just go with whatever you feel like goes along more with what you want. I would say the aesthetics of it is like the biggest factor, and apart from that, the fact that the Honda Civic has an LSD and the fact that the Acura has more horsepower, a little bit more horsepower, a little bit more torque, and but yeah, at the end of the day, they're basically very similar cars. I hope that this video helped out. I hope that the people that have asked me to do this video found some information to be useful, and that the data here helps you decide which car is better for you. So I hope you enjoyed this little like different kind of format thing. I've never done like a presentation type of video for you. So I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please leave a like. Please click on the notification bell if you can, so you get an update every time I upload a video and you never miss out on anything I upload. Leave a comment down in the section below. Let's start a conversation. Let's discuss the fact if you prefer an Acura RSX Type S or Honda Civic Si or whatever. Just leave your opinion down in the comment section below. Let's have a conversation. And thank you guys once again for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.